Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking through all of the books that I read in the month of February. So February was a really great reading month. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of books that I really thoroughly enjoyed. I just had a great time of reading, like a really great time. And I think it's probably one of the biggest reading months that I've had in quite a while, which is quite impressive considering that February is like the shortest month of the year. So I did really well with the quantity and quality of books I was reading in February. So very happy about that. So in total, I read 10 books, coming to a total of 3,961 pages. So just shy of that 4,000 page mark. But considering there were only 28 days in the month and I pretty much finished reading on the 26th because I didn't read anything 27th, 28th, I guess I was midway through another book. So I would have got over the 4,000 page mark. It just, I didn't finish that book. So a very successful month of reading. Of these, I read one sort of thriller mystery, 2 sci-fi, and 7 fantasy books. But these fantasy had like other elements in them. So there was like fantasy horror, fantasy romance. It wasn't just fully fantasy. So I had 1 5-star, 2 4.5 stars, 5 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, and 1 3 star. So overall, very positive. Enjoyed pretty much everything that I read. So just very positive feelings here. Very positive feelings. The series didn't do very well. Well, I started 3 new series. I continued in 1 series and I did not finish any series. So very much on the train of let's start all the things. And quite a few of the things I read were also standalones, but that means that my on-the-go series is at 30. But we will see if I can make some improvements on that in March. We shall see. So the way I've decided to split this up is that actually things seem to have fallen into little like categories this month. So I've sort of got like 3 different categories of things, and then I've got some that just are other that I will just throw into the mix. And so we're going to talk about these in a completely random order, just because of the way it has happened. Let's start with the first section, which is books with blood in the title. So coincidentally, I have read 3 blood books this month. And it's not like they're all around the same theme at all. It's just they all have blood in the title, and this was purely coincidental. I realised when I was reading the 3rd blood book that I was like, I read a lot of books with blood this month. So here we are with this little category of blood books. The first blood book that I read was Blood Mercy by Vella Roth. This was actually my 5-star of the month. I really thoroughly enjoyed this one. This is a fantasy romance story following our 2 main characters, Cassia and Leo. It's set in a sort of epic fantasy style world, so it's very political, I'd say quite slow moving, especially to begin with before it builds. And I just feel like there's so much potential for this series. I think when I finished this I was like maybe 4.5, but I have thought about this book so much this month. So in this world, Cassia is the illegitimate daughter of the king, and he is brutal. He kills lots of people. She is fears for her life and fears for her position, and always is trying to maintain her position and maintain some sort of power within this kingdom, or like maintain her position so that she has a value to him. And at the beginning of this book, he has called not a conference, but like a gathering between them and these people called the Hesperians, which are the vampire-like creatures in this world. And Leo, who is our other main character, is part of this embassy that is coming from the vampire empire, and it is them 2 meeting the political situation that is going on in this kingdom at that time, their relationship as it builds. And I found this was really well done. I really liked the politics. I quite liked the slow build in the beginning. It is definitely slower in the beginning, and I think that would be my biggest critique of it, that it does take a little while to get situated, but as an epic fantasy reader, I didn't really mind that. And then as things slowly build up to the ending, I really liked the writing style. I guess a critique would be that everyone talks about how much of a slow build, slow burn romance this is. And so in my head, I was thinking, oh, so not much is going to actually happen between the 2 of them in this first book, because this is a much longer series. So when I heard slow burn, I was like, oh, well, maybe they're just going to like kiss and hold hands in this one, or like it's going to be really that sort of slow burn where things don't quite happen. But things definitely do happen. But between our 2 characters, there is definitely some steaminess as we get into the second half of this, which I guess is expected in a fantasy romance. I just have been, I think, led too far down train of it is slow burn, slow burn, slow burn. But I am enjoying their relationship, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the rest of the series and seeing where it's going to go next, because the political situation here is just, I'm very intrigued by the politics and the world building and all of that. Another Blood book was The Blood Trials by Annie Davenport. This is the first book in a fantasy sci-fi duology. I class this as sci-fi, but it's definitely got some fantasy elements, sort of in the same vein as Red Rising has elements of fantasy mixed in with the sci-fi. And in this, we're following a main character, Ikenna, and at the beginning of the book, her grandfather has died, and so she has sort of fallen into depressive episodes. But when she finds out that his death was actually a murder, she then gets herself into gear to go into these trials to find out who murdered her grandfather and bring them to justice. I really liked the trials that we go through. They're very brutal, and I liked that brutality in a book. I would not want to be in those trials at all, but I did enjoy seeing her going through these trials and the challenges that she goes through, and also the characters that she meets along the way. I will say she's quite impulsive, and she does have some anger management issues potentially, but I did overall enjoy following her as a character. I am intrigued by the magic in this world, which there's like this blood magic which is banned, and if you have it then you are killed off, which our main character actually has and has been hiding her entire life. I will say the pacing in this is a little bit weird. Probably about 2/3 through we get to a point which I feel probably could have been the end of the book, and then the final third the pacing changes a little bit as we then build up to another sort of climactic moment, and so I do sort of feel that potentially this could have been a trilogy instead of a duology, just because of that weird pacing towards the back end of the story. But very intrigued to see where the second book goes, where we're going to get to, and overall enjoyed this one. And then the final Blood book that I read was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This one I listened to, and I would really recommend the audiobook. I think the narrator does a really, really good job. In this, we're following a main character, Constantine, and she at the beginning of the book is turned into a vampire, and then we're following her life and her life with her creator, and the events that they go through and the manipulation that he puts her through, and then other characters that join them along their way, and the people that come into this relationship. The whole book is written in the second person perspective, so it's all written to you, which is why as well I think the narrator and the audiobook did a very good job, because it felt as though it is being narrated to you, and you know that Constantine is writing this as though she's writing to her creator. And I liked how we progressed through history and seeing our main character come to terms with the position that she has been put into, and where she's at in life and what she wants out of her life, and acquiring her independence. I really liked it and would recommend it. Right, so there's all the Blood books. So now we will go into a random one. I'll just intersperse the randoms. So I read The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. This is a mystery thriller YA story. So this is looking at Indigenous people within the US. So our main character is from a Indigenous background, and at the beginning of the book she witnesses a brutal murder. She starts working reluctantly with the FBI to uncover a series of drug-related deaths, and seeing her relationship with those FBI agents, with her family, with the situation and the position that she gets put into as an Indigenous woman by the police force. I don't typically read YA, and I don't typically read this genre of YA, but I do think this really worked quite well. I listened to this one as well, and again I quite liked the audiobook of this. I think it was well paced, I think it was well structured, I think it definitely built towards the ending. I was intrigued, I was invested in seeing who was the cause of these deaths, or who was at fault here. I was angry at the situation that she was getting put into, and the position that her family were putting her in, the FBI were putting her in, the struggles that she was going through as a young woman, and how she was struggling with what she wanted to do with her life, what society wanted her to do with her life, what her family wanted her to do, and being stuck in this position that she didn't want to be in wanting to support her community and her background, but also wanting to uncover who was causing these deaths. So I think that was That was really well done, and I'll definitely be interested in reading more from Angeline Boulley in the future. I then have a couple of short fiction. So I did read some short books this month, which is a little rare, but that's probably how I managed to get to 10 books, because I did read some short ones. So I read To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi short story. Really liked. This was like 4.5 stars for me, but there's not a lot of plot. There's not loads that goes on. You just follow this main character, Ariadne, and she is an explorer, and she is going off to 4 different planets to explore them and explore life on these planets and just observe what goes on there. But these planets are many light years from Earth, so by the time that they would get there and get back, I think it was 80 odd years would have passed, and so life would have very much changed from when she left Earth. And we're following her and her crewmates as they get to each of these 4 planets and see what life is like there, see what's there, look at the geology, the life forms, the life there, and the bonding of the crew as they come together and live and in these conditions. I was really invested in it. I mean, it was weird to be invested in something where there wasn't loads and loads of plot, and we were just following these 4 people as they went about their lives on these planets and what they were going through, and this exploring the sci-fi and the planets in themselves, but also the impact that is having on them mentally and what they're going through personally. So overall, I would definitely recommend this if you're after a lighter sci-fi and just want to having a look more at like the human condition and who we are as people and what our impact is on our world and other worlds that we might come into contact with. So I would definitely recommend this. The other short fiction that I read, I mean, A Dowry of Blood was also quite short, but that falls into the blood section. But the other one was the Jadesetter of Janloon by Fonda Lee. This is a short story in the Greenbone Saga world, set prior to the events of the Greenbone Saga. I don't really want to talk like too much about it. I guess you could read it before the Greenbone Saga if you wanted to, but I feel as though lots of my enjoyment came in from having read the Greenbone Saga and having a connection to those characters. So it was really great to see them as younger versions of themselves and exploring the world again. I just loved being back in the Greenbone world, being back with that magic system, with the Jade, with Fonda Lee's writing. It just made me want more. It just made me really want more, because I love the Greenbone Saga. I really love that series. So it was so fun being back in that world with those characters, not with those characters, but like just back in that world. I was like, I just want more now. Like, I just want more of the Greenbone Saga now. And I know I'm not going to get it because the series is finished. She's not planning to write any more, but I really loved being there with those characters. And I did have a look at trying to find a physical edition, but they're just so very expensive. But I would really recommend it if you like the Greenbone Saga. If you've read that and you want a little bit more, I found this just delivered that. It delivered that little taste of extra Greenbone content that I really wanted. And it was just a perfect, I think it ended up being like 2 hours, so it was very quick and easy to listen to, and I just really enjoyed being back in that world. Another random one that doesn't fit into a section is Visions of Heat by Nalini Singh, the second book in the Side Changing series. I think this one was my most okay book of the month. I liked it, but I didn't love it. There are definitely elements of this that I really liked, but then there are elements that brought it down. So this is a paranormal romance series, mostly focusing on 2 types of creature. So you have the changelings, which are like werewolves, and then you have the Psy, which are they cut off all emotion and they're very methodical, human-like people, but that have really much cut themselves off from their emotions. And so we're following 2 characters, Faith and Vaughn. Faith is a Psy who is able to predict the future, and so she is used by the Psy population to predict changes in the market and where they should be investing. And then Vaughn is part of the changing pack that we met in book 1, and I really liked Faith. I loved Faith as a character and seeing the impact that she has on the Psy world, and the more we learn about the Psy in this book and her impact on the Psy and the Psy net in of itself. Vaughn was just too intense, I think, for me, that he was very 0 to 100 straight away. He saw Faith, he was like, I love you, and that was just a little bit too intense and just too much for me. I was like, just let Faith be herself. Don't force her into anything. You're just being a little bit too intense here. As well, the first book follows sort of a murder mystery plotline, and that was again sort of replicated in this. So it sort of felt a little bit samey in that we had this murder mystery come back. Well, not, I mean, it's not the same because of different people affected, but it was again a murder mystery plot. So although it was very compulsively readable and I was definitely invested in it and wanted to see what was going to happen, I feel like I do have critiques of it. I am very much interested in reading the next one because these first two books, they have had Psi female to male changeling, whereas the next one is the other way around, where it's a Psi male and female changeling. So I am interested in seeing that different dynamic and hoping that that will help me enjoy the series a little bit more, because I am really interested in the world and the lore and the history. It's just sometimes these romantic pairings are bringing it down a little bit for me. Speaking of cute romances, I did have a few cute romances that I read this month. More romances, but these ones I think were really cute. They really worked well for me. The first one being A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This is a gay fantasy romance between a prince and his bodyguard. And I really like this one. So you see, everything's positive, everything I really liked. We're following Prince Kado, whose sister is ruling this kingdom, and it's definitely a fantasy romance, but I feel like the romance was what I was invested in more so than the fantasy elements. That's what I was going back for. So Prince Kado suffers from anxiety, and I do think the representation here was really well done, and seeing how he feels about his anxiety, how anxiety is, how people feel about anxiety in this world, how it's not really talked about, and how he comes to accept it. And so you follow him at the beginning. There's lots of political tension between him and the person that his sister is in a relationship with, and so there's lots of like tensions there and the politics, and he feels as though Kado, our prince, feels like he's very inadequate, so much so that he ends up getting a changing of the guard following a situation, and that's where Evermere, our new bodyguard, comes in. And it's very much this hate to love romance that at the beginning they're very antagonistic towards each other. They do not get along, they do not see value really in each other, but as the book goes on their relationship gets closer and closer, and we start to see their relationship form. And I really liked it. I liked how sort of slow build it was, that it was very much, it wasn't instantaneous, that they really built together as a couple. I liked where we got to with them in the end. I thought it was really cute, some of their scenes together, and I was as well invested in where we were getting to with the fantasy plotline and where that was going as well. So I think that both elements balanced really well together, that I was here for the romance, but I think the fantasy plotline was done well. So would definitely recommend this if you're after like a standalone fantasy with a romantic plotline. I then have The Undertaking of Hart and Mercy, definitely leaning on the cute romance here with a slim fantasy plotline. We're following Mercy, who is working at her family undertaker's business, and Hart, who is a marshal as well. So he brings in bodies to her, but they do not get along. It's again a sort of hate to love romance where they had a bad interaction to begin with, and then that sets them off on this train of disliking each other until they actually start to get to know each other. So at the beginning of the book, they accidentally or through events end up sending each other messages, not realizing who they're sending them to or who is responding. It's very cute. So I'd say that this is very much a romance in a fantasy world, that the romance is really at the forefront, more so than A Taste of Gold and Iron, where I'd say it's probably more 50-50. This is definitely 75% romance to 25% fantasy world. But it is a fantasy world, but the core of it is the romance between these two characters. But I did also really like and hear the side characters. I liked Mercy's family. I liked seeing them and the trials that they are going through with this undertaking business, and the struggles that they are facing with competition within this town. I did like seeing how Hart slowly opens up throughout the book. That at the beginning he is very insular, and as the book goes on he opens up, he brings people enter into his life, and he opens up to them and grows as a character. So I did like seeing things outside of their relationship and outside of their romance that were influencing the story. It wasn't just solely focused on them. There was definitely the other side characters that were driving forces as well in this book. But overall, I'd say this was really cute. So if you're after a cute romance, then I would recommend this. Or if you normally read like contemporary books or contemporary romances, then this would probably be a good place to go if you wanted to get into like a fantasy romance, because of how limited in the fantasy aspects that it is. And then the final book that I have to talk about is actually probably one of the first books that I finished in the month of February, and that is the Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, the first book in the Burning Kingdoms series. So this one I have some mixed opinions on. I think I really loved it to begin with. Because I think I started this one in January, I really loved it to begin with. I then went on a work trip, which meant I didn't really read for a few days, and then I think it took me a little while to get back into it, and I was a little bit slow with it. And I think because it took me so long to read, by the time I got to the ending, I was like, oh, we finally made it. And that might have been because of the way that I read it, that it took me so long to read. And that's not the book's fault, but it did feel like this book went on for a very, very long time. But I had such a good experience with it in the beginning, which is where I'm a little bit conflicted. In this, we have two main characters, Priya and Malini, and Malini has been sent to be in isolation at the top of this tower due to displeasing her brother, the king. And Priya is her maidservant, and it's them coming into contact and the relationship that they build together. It's a very, very political book, I would say, and I really did like the magic system in this. So there is this thing called the rot, and if people come into contact with that, then they start sort of growing leaves and tree-like bark all over them. And so there was this fear of people catching that. So I did like that aspect and the magic within this world, which we explore more towards the beginning, and then the other parts of the magic system as well, I really liked. So those are our main two characters, but we also do follow a couple of other side characters. I did really like all of the characters in this and the dynamics that these characters have, because they don't always get along, and the world building and the magic I really liked, but I did think the pace was a little bit slow, but that may have been me. That may have been me taking too long to read it. But I would say that impacted my enjoyment, because I did feel like this book went on and on and on. But I'm definitely intrigued to keep going with this series. I do like Tasha Suri's writing style, so I am intrigued to see where we're going to go next and see what's going to happen with our characters, because it does feel like we have left off on quite a dramatic point. So there we go. Those are the 10 books that I read in the month of February. Let me know how your reading in February went and your thoughts on any of the books that I finished, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!